Good evening. Tonight, I am the luckiest man. Why? Because I become part of your journey to the brotherhood. And by some divine timing, my construction company turns 8 years old today. Thank you. I submit to Kuya Ram's discernment and sense of timing. God is good. I am Willie Lozano, a civil engineer practicing my profession almost 3 decades now, with the past 11 years under the guidance of our BCBP teachings and formation. My wife, Ati Joy, is one of our DGL tonight. She's over there. The lady in red. We attended our first breakfast together, but I was late in the Christian Life program by 5 years. Due to my work in Laos, in Southeast Asia, and in Pampanga and Tarlac later on, constructing the Clark-Tarlac Expressway portion of the SFX, or the Subi-Clark-Tarlac Expressway. My dentist wife was so patient and supportive until I graduated my 4 breakfasts in 4 years. I had my CLP number 18 together with our course leader tonight, Kuya Ram and Atimina Duterte. Around 30 minutes, we will be talking about guidelines for business dealings between members of the BCBP. We wonder why we need guidelines. As we grow in our personal relationship with the Lord through the community, we become more comfortable with each other to the point of hiring each other's services. We have brothers and sisters in the fields of law, medicine, engineering, and in the police, banking, accounting, insurance, construction, hardware, retailing business. Dapat ang luha, ang hardware, ang retailing, etc. We find it comfortable to engage the services of our brethren rather than those we do not know. Besides, it is rather appropriate to support the enterprise of fellow members than others. That's what friends are for. So we have to keep in mind, regardless of the outcome of any business dealings with fellow members, relationships matters most above gains and losses. So the 2 goals of this talk are the BCBP's general guidelines for business dealings between members and the procedure in working out business conflicts between members. A simple conflict. No? On the other side, one person can see 4, on the other side 3. So how to resolve if we have a conflict like this? Is it fair to make them meet in the middle and agree on 3.5? Also, we will be talking about the specific business relationships. In the outline on general guidelines, take note on the basic commitment, the rest would only follow. So, next slide please. So we have the basic commitment, the righteousness, the proper stewardship, the guidance and the brotherhood, the chapter leaders' neutrality or independence, the openness to spouse and non-dealings, speech, openness and full disclosure, and working out conflicts. On specific business relationships, we have corporation, partnership, joint venture, supplier-customer relationship, professional and client, employer-employee, borrower-lender, broker and client relationship. As mentioned, the most important to keep in mind tonight is our BCBP basic commitment, that is to love and serve one another and to be ready to meet one another's needs. This is our coat of arms as we interact with our brothers and sisters. This love, this willingness to serve and readiness to meet one another's needs should take precedence over the pursuit of profit or economic gain. And our readiness to meet one's needs should be with our personal health and resources, and to look upon one another's welfare as our own. Our commitment is more of service rather than business, meaning there will be sacrifices. We are committed to a life of righteousness and holiness with BCBP, not just individually but also as a community. Therefore, all our business dealings ought to be conducted in a righteous and just way. Also, we are reminded that we are just steward of the talents and resources entrusted to us by the Lord. Proper stewardship is our duty and responsibility to harness, develop, and utilize those talents and resources properly, and to exert our best efforts to preserve the of our business in order to contribute to the common good and continue to serve its others' needs. In the parable of the sums of money in Luke 19, verses 12 to 27, the Lord commands proper stewardship of resources when He talks about investment, money, profit, withdrawals, deposits, loans, interest, etc. More so that He exemplified the decisiveness a businessman should possess. He manifested the implements of harshest punishments for errors, not for tyranny per se, but in showing us that resources are not to be squandered. Regarding guidelines in the brotherhood, we have to be aware that problems and differences arises from business relations may lead to a breakdown of relationships. We have to be careful with that. Such conflicts not only affect the members' commitment to love and serve one another, but also the unity and peace of the body or of our chapter. This is what we have to avoid at all costs. Relationships matters most than business gains. The chapter's leaders' neutrality practically is intended for present and future leaders, reminding them that it is a wise policy for leaders of the flock to generally inhibit themselves from entering into business with any member under their care. This would help in safeguarding and ensuring their freedom in the objective input or direction, affecting not only the personal life of their men but also of their business affairs. In the conduct of business, openness and or disclosure to spouse on all business dealings is advisable in whatever business deals we get into. As the brotherhood empowered the men to lead the BCBP affairs, wives are advised to secure the husband's approval before engaging business relationship with any BCBP member. When a business deal becomes sour, so sahay, two sides of the coin. So one side, when it becomes sour, it is advisable to refrain sharing of information, particularly those arising from business difficulties. We should always be guided by righteous and prudent use of our speech. In that way, misunderstandings could always be avoided and peace and harmony are preserved. That goes with the full disclosure of facts and circumstances surrounding with the business transaction. To simplify business transaction, agreements and important matters are best to be written, observing that the spirit of agreements, written or verbal, is to be honored at all times. This practice actually we can read in Exodus 17 verse 14 by our Lord Himself. The reading reminded us to write down in document all instructions. In Romans 13:8, the Lord promises us that He who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. He who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. This fulfillment of the law is the promise, the fruit of our basic commitment when we give life to the call to love and serve one another. In the event when conflict arises, we keep that call to love and serve one another in resolving the conflict. We are duty-bound to exert every effort to resolve any conflict in an amicable manner, to preserve loving personal relationships, and to prevent harm or injury to the brotherhood. If the controversy or dispute cannot be resolved, elevating the matter to the chapter is advisable. Court litigation should only be resorted to as a last recourse. When you decide to get involved in a specific business relationship, like a corporation, partnership, or joint venture, all possible conflict of interest situations are to be avoided, and the member concerned has the duty to make a full disclosure of all facts and circumstances involved in the business proposition. A few years ago, a governance member from another chapter offered a partnership. In his proposal, he was responsible in getting construction projects, and mine was to handle office works and project implementation. We agreed. Initial funding was on me, with the understanding that when payments come, I would be refunded and the remaining would be divided equally as profit. First project expense was the mobilization and the weekly operations of 5 units of backhoe excavators for the excavation works of a factory construction here in Clip. Then second project expense was the perimeter fence of same factory, more than a hectare in area. Now here comes the advance payment and the subsequent progress payment. Agreed refund on my expense was not delivered. No share on profit also. What happened? There was no written agreement and transparency of the partnership. I got carried away with the scope of the projects and the momentum of the works. So pagkatungog na ko, mga na among project, of course, ay imong mind Bas na kayo kung ano sa negosyo. One incident after my men sharing in another chapter, a brother offered to broker a consultancy joint venture between our companies with another company conducting business with the Department of National Defense. When he heard I have experience with big construction projects, so he come to me. This joint venture later on, it brought me to restricted military camps in Ilocos, in Mindoro, in Palawan, in Zamboanga and Sulu, even on the islands near Sabah, Malaysia. It landed me at this practice in the West Philippine Sea or Cape, KIG, the Kalayaan Islands group of our archipelago. My broker partner responsibility was to ensure faithfulness of client payments. What happened? Since best friend niya ang son of the company owner and our direct client, dili siya ka-pressure sa release of payments. So I was left with unpaid billings. What went wrong? No observance of BCBP basic commitment. Love one another. Failure on openness and full disclosure of facts and circumstances, and non-avoidance of conflict of interest in the business proposition. When you are a supplier or a professional, profit should not be your only consideration. Recalling our commitment to meet and serve the needs of our buyer and our client, we have the obligation to look after their welfare as well. Whether it is a pricing of products and services, it must be in the light of teachings on proper stewardship, in which no member is expected to suffer a loss or impair the assets of his business enterprise, or prejudice the interest of his other partners or investors. Kaning suffering losses and impairment of business assets. Igo sa kuwali. Diya to'y ato-ato lang yun, no? Diya to'y elder ate wanting me to modify her house construction located in another province. I visited her project site. I ended up giving my approach on the works since she wanted me to talk to her workers. Then I was pressured to produce drawings. When I sent my billings later, she said wala siya budget para sa akong services. My expense on drawings, designs, and consultations with other professionals, I don't know electrical, so I have to consult the electrical engineer. We need to consult the structural engineer. Although I can design, but we need the signature of the structural engineer. Travel expense and professional fees were not paid. So instead na ma-refund akong gasto plus expected profit, ako pang puhunan ang nakuha. Unsay hinungdan? The transaction was not made in writing, and too trusting and complacent on my side. Kanang niyuta sa brotherhood, naa ang kaikog. Due to it, the intention of my elder ate come to fruition for me to suffer loss and impairment of business assets. In the employment sector, when your boss is a BCBP co-member, it does not guarantee a special treatment. Do your task as your boss would expect a member employee the same level of performance as he would demand of a non-member in terms of diligence, faithfulness, loyalty, honesty, etc. in the work environment. On the other hand, the employer or boss must deal with all his employees righteously and fairly. Relating to them not as units of work, but as human beings deserving love and respect. While we are encouraged to help one another with our resources, we are not given the assurance of liberality in borrowing from any member. No, take note of this, or lend to anyone at all. So when you loan money, it is advisable to put the loan agreement, including the terms of payment, in a formal binding contract, fully notarized, possible, with co-makers if you may. Kaning utang daghang nangapaso ani o daghang luha nangahulog. Many borrowings happen in the community. If you think it is safer to keep your savings or treasures in other hands rather than your own, then face the risk squarely when you lend it. Hard-earned money does not come easy. Losing your savings through borrowings is equivalent to losing assets or puhunan in business. Walang hindi gusto ka, hindi mo puhunan, wala na, no? Likay lang ta sa hard-earned, no? Like that one. In the investment sector, when you are a broker, you should not get your client broke, of course. Instead, you are committed to look after the welfare of your fellow member client and should therefore fully disclose all facts and risks. Unless otherwise specified, the broker should make it clear and the parties should realize that he does not warrant anything. Parties to the transaction must remain good stewards, as fully expected from each one, particularly those who attended this talk. Friends, those are the guidelines. With time, the growth of our personal relationship with the Lord would manifest in our interactions with brethren in community activities. When we stretch our relationship to the professional services, which are beyond the call of the brotherhood, the same loving relationships are to be expected. The more we should be patient and understanding so that relationships will not be destroyed. As I have shared my shortcomings, I have my share of good business dealings too in the community. One instance, the client was our BCBP Mactan chapter's governance team for the renovation works of our first BCBP Mactan office. It was a good example of a transparent business transactions. With the cost plus project, all records and communications were open, and transparencies on all aspects were observed. Everything went according to agreement because the client and I observed the transparency of business transaction defined on this doc. Another good business dealing was with a common member belonging to us, to our chapter, and now they are in another chapter, who wanted me to build a 2-level extension of their subdivision unit. They insisted on giving me a bigger advance payment than I required. Hadlok sila, magas nila. Yung budget sa balay. So, hatag na lang nila. Transparency of agreement and openness of communication became our norm, that when issues arise, di mo na malikayan, all ends well with a healthy discussion. Money matters did not become an issue, though their funds were limited. Both of us exercise openness and full disclosure of facts and circumstances, avoidance of conflict, showing patience and trust on each other. The project became a tool in enhancing more our relationship. My longest client also is a self-18 Kuya batchmate. Our business relationship started when he hired me to build the dream house of his brother-in-law who had insufficient funds. He was a young seaman, 23 years old, the first niya biyahe. So iyang napunto, iyang itukod ng balay. He has a big dream of a house. Iyang funds, di ganyan na. I designed the structures per future plans, so just to level, and built the project one room at a time. From there on, I had several projects with this Kuya until now. Recently, I completed the 4 piggery and farm buildings in the north. Now, the biogas structure or plant is being constructed. What makes the relationship last? We can ask, no? Transparency of agreement, trust on both parties, openness and full disclosure of facts, avoidance of conflict, honoring of agreement, verbal or written. I see it as a brotherly love in action while having business dealings with fellow BCBP members. Friends, just because I am the speaker tonight, it did not guarantee that I am the smartest on this room. In fact, I got burned in business dealings with fellow BCBP members. Of course, there was a fault on my side, not just on the other side. The complications and losses could have been avoided if everything were put into writing and fully disclosed to respective leaders. Possible flaws of contract and temptations to abuse may have been avoided. It happened because I did not follow instructions and I chose not to apply our guidelines for business dealings between members of the BCBP. So it is my prayer tonight that you will not commit the same mistakes I did. It is my hope that you will give life to our BCBP basic commitment, that is, to love and serve one another, to look upon one another's welfare as our own. When business dealings with fellow BCBP members cannot be avoided, that you will conduct it in a righteous and just manner. Will honor all forms of agreement, written or verbal. You will avoid conflict so that every business transaction would make both parties end up better off than before, preserving the personal loving relationship. My company practically was born with my regular attendance in the breakfast, of course, after I graduated. With thoughts on these guidelines for business dealings between members. Yet in the conduct of my business, those times that I experienced downfall and soreness of dealings, it was in those times when I neglected to apply the soundness of our guidelines. The successes were the results of the full application of these guidelines. This is your servant, Engineer Willie Lozano, the Authorized Managing Officer of WJ Lozano Construction and Supply. Enjoy your journey to the brotherhood. Godspeed.